Things are getting pretty crazy with this US-Iran war thing, or I guess Iran is the correct way to pronounce it. I need to get used to pronouncing it the right way. Growing up in America, you just think Iraq, Iran. That's how it's said. That's not how it's pronounced. You're supposed to pronounce it Iran and Iraq. Just straight up, we just all got, gaslit our whole lives in believing that was an acceptable way to pronounce those countries' names. Anyway, though, that aside, war with Iran. I did it again. Iran. Going pretty badly, because turns out it was not a quick drone operation or a quick bomb and run operation. Boom, we've done it, we've won, let's go, yay, woo, Donald Trump, so much winning, we're tired of winning. No. Turns out, like every single foreign policy expert and war specialist warned, war with Iran would not be smart for the US, especially not in the economic state that we're in right now. And sure enough, they were all right. They were all correct, because the US is not capable of beating Iran without deploying troops on the ground. The exact thing that Trump and his supporters absolutely did not want. Literal US troop deployments in foreign nations to fight pointless foreign war. But that's what we're doing now. That's what we're doing. This is what Trump supporters said they were voting against when they went to the polls that day. It's pretty funny. Now, if you don't know, if you've actually followed what's been going on for the last few days, or the last week, honestly, it's been really interesting, because the first place we heard it from were the strippers. That's right. Just like when an economic crash is coming, when there's a war coming, you ask the strippers. They're like oracles. They know all, okay? Because strippers oftentimes see a lot of business with enlisted servicemen, especially before deployment. Especially before deployment. And a bunch of strippers, local to military bases around America and globally, all took to social media to talk about how the guys that they're seeing they're deploying soon. They're getting their last night or two with a girl before they gotta deploy overseas. And it's all of them. Like, everybody is deploying. And we've known that this was happening behind the scenes because of these little leaks for like a week now. And it was the strippers who warned us. Sex workers are the best sources of information. I don't know why. Well, actually, the more I think about it, the more it completely makes sense. They know everything. But they do. They just know everything. They know when the economy is going to crash, they know when we're about to go to war, and they know all the dirt on that guy that you need to bribe. So, fuck, dude. They're like the ultimate intelligence agents. Anyway, U.S. ground forces, as of last night, have arrived in the Middle East as the Iran conflict escalates. And you know what makes this even funnier? Israel has come out to say that there will be no Israeli troops on the ground fighting with the US. After the cumulative $200 billion the US has given to Israel over the course of its lifetime, which that's the actual number. I'm sure you guys have heard numbers like Biden gave $200 billion to Israel. The actual number is that's the total amount ever given to Israel, but by the US ever. But just fun fact. But after all that money that we've given to Israel, after all the lethal aid we've given to Israel, after all the weapons and all the everything that we've given, the legitimization that just being allied with us gives, they're like, no, we're not going to deploy any troops in the ground. You Americans can all go fight our war for us. Because this is just Trump and Netanyahu's war. Let's not make any mistake. That's what this is. Now, there have been talks by some about there potentially being a draft because of this. I doubt it. I really do doubt it. Even with the decreased enlistment rates, we still have the largest active forces in the world and the largest reserve forces in the world. I don't think we'll ever have another draft. If there's ever a war big enough to require another draft, I'm pretty sure every military expert agrees with this, by the way. If we ever have a war that requires the US to do another draft, it's going to be such a massive war, it'll probably escalate to nukes and the world will likely be ending, so it won't matter anyway. It's very unlikely that an actual draft happens here. I've had discussions about the economy with the girls. Xander's 100% right about existing dancers knowing what's up. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Anyway, United States ground-capable forces are now arriving in the Middle East as the conflict involving Iran intensifies, marking a significant escalation despite no official announcement of a ground invasion. Recent reporting confirms that at least 2,500 Marines and sailors deployed aboard, I can't read today, aboard the USS Tripoli have entered the region, bringing aviation assets, equipment, and rapid response ground units. These forces are designed for Should I read this like the intro sequence to every episode of the Clone Wars? These forces have designed for... I can't do it. For expeditionary operations, including amphibious landings and rapid response combat missions. Additional reinforcements are also underway. Elements of the 82nd Airborne Division have been deployed to the region, a unit specifically structured for rapid insertion into hostile environments. These troops are typically used for seizure of key terrain, emergency response operations, and early-stage combat deployments. These movements are not speculative, they are confirmed deployments of ground-capable forces into a theater where active hostilities are already underway. So, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there... It's Tripoli? Okay, Tripoli? I don't know. Wasn't there a big, like, well-accepted simulation of what would happen if the US attempted a ground invasion of Iran? And it predicted that within a week, within a month or something like that, it was like 20,000 US troops were predicted to have died in all the simulations. I remember this being like a big thing for years. Like, whenever the topic of maybe this politician gets us into war with Iran came up, we would be pointing to, if we go to war, it's going to lead to tens of thousands of dead US troops in a month. Like, that was the big number everyone was, pointing at and throwing around. I don't know if anybody else remembers that. Maybe I could find it myself, because this might be what we have coming. I remember it was like something like 20,000. Simulations of a US-Iran conflict have suggested a high-risk scenario with significant potential for escalation and massive casualties and global economic fallout. War games such as the 2002 Millennium Challenge and Brookings studies indicate Iran could use asymmetric tactics, which is exactly what they'll do, missile swarms and small boat attacks to severely damage US naval assets in the Persian Gulf. In this $250 million simulation, Red Forces, modeled on Iran, led by Lieutenant General Paul Van Ripper, utilized asymmetric, low-tech tactics to sink 16 U.S. warships in the first 2 days of the exercise, demonstrating the vulnerability of advanced naval forces to swarming strategies. Simulations included those by the Brookings Institution indicate a high likelihood of a rapid, uncontrollable escalation from cyber attacks and targeted strikes to full-scale conventional war. Iran is seen as a formidable adversary with the ability to close the Strait of Hormuz, causing severe disruptions to oil supplies. Weird how that all came true from the simulation. They literally simulated that happening, that whole Strait of Hormuz thing, back in 2002. We've known that if we did this, that we would cause what's happening right now since 2002, when it happened in a simulation. While the U.S. possesses superior military firepower, situations show that a full-scale invasion of Iran could result in a long-term, high-casualty occupation leading to a potential civil war. So, that's definitely something. But yeah, it was the Millennium Challenge 2002. So it was the blue versus the red, and blue was the U.S. and red was Iran. And I think it came out that, like, it would result in the deaths of, like, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops if we did a ground invasion of Iran. This is not a good scenario. This is not going to go well. The forces arriving are not configured for a large-scale occupation. Instead, they provide the United States with flexible operation capabilities that can be activated quickly. Marine Expeditionary Units, or MEUs, such as those deployed on the USS Tripoli, are designed for amphibious operations, crisis response, and limited ground engagements. They can conduct raids, secure infrastructure, evacuate civilians, and reinforce forward positions. Their presence expands the range of military options beyond air and naval strikes. Airborne units, like the 82nd Airborne Division, serve a different but complementary role. They are optimized for rapid deployment by air, allowing the U.S. to establish a ground presence in contested areas within hours. This makes them particularly relevant in scenarios involving escalation, where speed and mobility are critical. Together, these forces give Washington the ability to transition from remote strikes to direct ground operations if conditions change. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. The arrival of ground forces does not mean a ground war is begun. It does, however, indicate that the United States is preparing for the possibility. So keep in mind, it's not outright started yet. It's not outright started yet, but they're being deployed. So clearly it's going to happen, but it hasn't started yet. Defense planning now reportedly includes options for limited ground operations inside Iran, including targeted missions rather than a full-scale invasion. These plans remain contingent and have not been publicly approved, but their existence underscores how far the situation has progressed. The presence of ground forces also alters the strategic calculus. Once troops are positioned in theater, the time required to launch operations decreases dramatically. That shift increases both deterrence and risk, as decisions can be executed more quickly under pressure. Hasn't the U.S. also historically done best in modern war when engaging in, borderline asymmetric warfare as well? Sure, the U.S. can just come in with, 1,000 helicopters and blot out the skies, but we also have, disabled regimes by sending a group of, 8 guys in on one helicopter to take out one dude. We've done this. I feel like that's kind of when the U.S. is really effective, is that we have the resources to be able to do a million little asymmetric attacks, when our opposition has the resources to do a few thousand asymmetric attacks. But if we just kind of go all... You have to imagine, if we do what we did in Afghanistan especially, and we try to full, regime change, just occupy the country... You're not really opening yourself up to be able to do that. You're just going to be the one getting attacked from the shadows, so to speak. I don't know what Trump's plan is even here at this point. Trump's now begging for ceasefire and for peace talks, all the while Iran's leaders are rejecting it and denying that these talks are even happening. It's really bizarre how back and forth this has all been. It's really, nobody is actually showing their hand as to what they really want from this. For all we know, Trump wants this to be over and he's scared now, or he wants it to keep going on and he's just pretending to want to end it. At this point, neither side is showing their hand. I can't read either of them. Trump because he's so retarded, and Iranian leaders because I genuinely don't know what their objective is. There has been no official announcement that U.S. ground troops have entered Iranian territory or that a full-scale ground invasion has been ordered. On March 4th, in the infancy of the currently ongoing conflict, U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane told the press that when asked about potential boots on the ground, that he couldn't answer such a question and that he doesn't make policy, but only executes it. That same press conference, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth... Defense Secretary? You mean Secretary of War? Critiqued questions regarding ground troops as fake news, adding we've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. Hell yeah, just lie your ass off, buddy. True, totally. Yeah, we totally own their airspace, waterways, and have practically taken the country, and we've not even put boots on the ground yet. Absolutely, we believe it. Public statements from U.S. officials continue to emphasize that objectives may be achieved without deploying ground forces into Iran itself. That's kind of, I guess that works if you don't actually have any objectives. Yeah, you actually don't have to do anything to achieve your objectives in this war. If it's just kind of aimless and desperate. At the same time, the military buildup suggests that this option is being actively preserved. This creates a deliberate ambiguity. The United States has not crossed the threshold into a ground war, but it has positioned itself to do so with limited delay. Iran has responded to these developments by signaling that it expects potential ground engagement. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Galibaf, That's a fun name. Warned that Iranian forces were waiting for the arrival of American troops on the ground to set them on fire and punish their regional partners forever. Damn. I mean, he tried to farm some aura with that one, but I mean, he could have flowered that one up a little bit. I don't know, like, we're waiting for the arrival of American troops, and they will meet our steel. Or lead, I guess, but you know what I mean. These warnings reflect the high stakes associated with any ground deployment. Unlike air or naval strikes, ground operations expose U.S. personnel directly and create a greater risk of sustained escalation across the region. So, everybody is panicking right now at the possibility of getting drafted. And this happens every time the U.S. gets a little bit into a conflict, and in this case, directly starts a conflict. Everyone starts getting scared that World War III is going to happen, that there's going to be a draft. As I mentioned before, I wouldn't be too worried about there being a draft of any kind. Does this war potentially escalate to the point where it gets to be a real problem? It's definitely possible. I could see it happening, actually. It's not impossible. Not by any means. This could definitely get pretty fucking crazy. And we could see some significant lost lives on the US side of this. And I've noticed that a lot of people have kind of preemptively celebrated fallen US soldiers in this conflict because they don't like Donald Trump or his policy. Most of them are non-Americans, you know, so they straight up hate Americans. They laugh wholeheartedly when they see US soldiers die, but they're also just posting their opinion on Twitter about that, right? So it's like, you're gonna see a lot of negativity around the US and a lot of people, like Europeans and non-Americans on social media, celebrating dead US soldiers, even if those people were like 19, 20-year-old kids who were just trying to get a decent paycheck. And that's in large part due to how much Trump's bad policy has polarized people against Americans so much that America's starting to get the Israel treatment, low-key. Like, imagine you get actually drafted, and you have to go fight Iran for America, and you die, and then you get a bunch of people on social media laughing and calling you a cog in the genocide because you were fighting for America, which is allied with Israel. And if you were a real good person, you would have just refused to be drafted. Because I've seen that exact mindset around Israelis that refuse to join the IDF and go to jail for it. Like, you'll see lefties on Twitter say, do not celebrate this Israeli for doing the bare minimum. It's like, bro, she's going to prison for 5 years instead of serving in the IDF. Like, give her some props, okay? Like, shit. Anyway. If you enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable, and you want me to cover more news in the future on this topic, then be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. I really do appreciate it immensely. It helps a ton in the algorithm. And make sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, you can follow my social medias linked down below in the description, particularly my fan Discord, as that's the main hub of my fan base and community, and I host watch parties and movie nights and gaming events there roughly every week. And on top of that, you can recommend me stuff to cover in the stream suggestions chat. And finally, if you want to support the stream directly, financially, you can always donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me on YouTube if you want to give the channel a bit of a financial boost. I always appreciate it. With that said, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.